Imagine two children, one born in 1995, the other born in 2025. On the surface, they seem almost identical. They laugh at the same jokes, feel the same emotions, and share the same human instincts. Yet the world surrounding them are radically different. One grew up before algorithms controlled attention. The other may never experience a world without them. For almost all of human history, childhood followed a surprisingly familiar pattern. Children learned by exploring the physical world around them. They chased friends through neighborhoods, climbed trees, built imaginary worlds from sticks and cardboard, and slowly discovered how people behaved through direct experience. A child born in ancient Rome. A child born in medieval Europe. A child born in 1950. A child born in 1995. Different cultures, different technologies, different societies. But they all shared one thing. Most of their learning happened face-to-face. Human beings taught human beings how to become human. Not through tutorials, not through recommendation engines, not through personalized content feeds. Through conversations, observation, mistakes, arguments, friendships, and thousands of small interactions that slowly shaped the developing brain. Then something extraordinary happened. The internet arrived. At first, it seemed harmless, a giant library connecting the world. Information became easier to access. Knowledge became easier to share. Communication became almost instant. Few people realized this was only the beginning. Then came smartphones. For the first time in history, an entire world could fit inside a pocket. News, entertainment, games, friends, videos, information. Everything became available everywhere. And then came social media. Not just websites, not just apps, entire ecosystems designed around one objective: keeping people engaged for as long as possible. The difference between television and social media is enormous. Television broadcasts the same content to everyone. Algorithms do something completely different. They create a different reality for every individual person. Your feed is not my feed. My feed is not your child's feed. Every swipe teaches the system something. Every pause teaches the system something. Every click teaches the system something. Every second of attention becomes data, and data becomes prediction. The algorithm is constantly asking a question. What will keep this person watching? Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. The answer changes every second, and the system adapts in real time. The strange thing is that most people don't fully realize what's happening. When we open an app, it feels like we're choosing what to watch. But increasingly, the system is choosing what we see. And what we see eventually shapes how we think. For adults, this is already powerful. For children, it may be far more powerful. Because childhood is not just a stage of life. It's the period when the brain is still building the mental tools needed to navigate the world. A child is not simply collecting information. A child is learning what deserves attention, what deserves emotion, what deserves curiosity, what deserves fear. And those lessons shape everything that comes later. For thousands of years, parents, families, teachers, and communities were the primary influences in a child's development. Today, something new has entered the room: the algorithm. And unlike parents, the algorithm never sleeps. It watches every interaction, learns from every decision, updates every prediction, and slowly becomes better at understanding what captures attention. Not because it's intelligent in a human sense, but because it has access to more behavioral data than any human being ever could. To understand why this matters, we need to understand what social media companies are actually selling. Most people think companies like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat sell content. They don't. Content is only the bait. The real product is attention. And attention has become one of the most valuable resources on Earth. Think about it. The biggest companies in the world are no longer competing only for money. They're competing for your time. Every extra minute you spend scrolling, every extra video you watch, every extra notification you open, that time becomes revenue. For most of human history, attention wasn't something corporations could capture at scale. A merchant could attract your attention. A teacher could attract your attention. A storyteller could attract your attention. But nobody could compete for every waking moment of your life. Today they can. Your phone sits beside your bed. It travels in your pocket. It waits beside your dinner table. It sits next to you on the couch. It follows you almost everywhere you go. No technology in human history has had access to so much of a person's life. And every major platform is engaged in the same race, a race to become slightly more engaging, slightly more addictive, slightly harder to put down. Because if they win a few extra minutes from billions of users, the rewards are enormous. The algorithms don't care whether you're 8 years old or 80. They care about signals. Did you stop scrolling? Did you watch until the end? Did you click? Did you share? Did you come back tomorrow? Those signals teach the system what works. The result is something humanity has never experienced before. A machine that becomes better at capturing attention every single day. Not because it understands people, because it studies billions of them simultaneously. Imagine a teacher who could watch every student on Earth, every reaction, every expression, every mistake, every success, then instantly update their teaching strategy. That would be a superhuman teacher. Modern algorithms are doing something surprisingly similar. The difference is that the goal isn't education, the goal isn't wisdom, the goal isn't long-term well-being, the goal is engagement. Whatever keeps attention tends to win. And what keeps attention is not always what helps people grow. This is where things become complicated, because attention isn't just another resource. Attention is the gateway to everything else. Whatever captures your attention eventually influences your thoughts, your habits, your beliefs, and ultimately the direction of your life. When people talk about social media, they usually focus on what it adds. More entertainment, more information, more connection, more convenience. But there is another question that may be even more important. What is it replacing? Because every new technology removes something as well as adding something. Cars gave us speed, but reduced walking. GPS gave us navigation, but weakened our need to remember directions. Calculators gave us accuracy, but reduced mental arithmetic. Every tool changes behavior. The same thing is happening with attention. The danger may not be what social media gives children. The danger may be what it quietly takes away. Let's start with boredom. Most adults remember being bored as children, waiting in line, sitting in the car, staring out a window, waiting for friends, waiting for something interesting to happen. Boredom felt unpleasant. But boredom served a purpose. It forced the brain to generate its own stimulation. Stories, ideas, games, questions, daydreams. Imagination often begins where boredom ends. Today, boredom rarely survives. The moment discomfort appears, a screen appears. The moment silence appears, content appears. The moment waiting begins, scrolling begins. The brain no longer needs to generate stimulation. It can simply consume it. Then there is reading. Reading is one of the strangest things humans ever invented. You stare at symbols. Those symbols become words. Those words become images. Those images become entire worlds. The process is slow, and that's exactly why it matters. Reading trains attention differently. It asks the brain to stay with one idea for a long time. One page, one chapter, one story. Sometimes for hours. There are no notifications, no recommendations, no infinite feed. Compare that to modern platforms. Every few seconds, something changes. New video, new topic, new joke, new argument, new stimulus. The brain becomes accustomed to constant novelty. The problem is that many important things in life are not novel. Mastering a skill isn't novel. Building a business isn't novel. Writing a book isn't novel. Learning an instrument isn't novel. These things require long periods of focused effort. Another thing that may be disappearing is deep conversation. Human beings evolved around conversations. For thousands of years, knowledge moved through stories, questions, disagreements, shared experiences. Face-to-face communication shaped culture itself. But conversation is difficult. It requires patience, listening, empathy, awkward moments, misunderstandings. Real relationships are messy. Algorithms are smooth. A feed never disagrees with you in the same way a friend does. A feed never challenges you like a mentor does. A feed adapts to your preferences. People often don't. And that's precisely why people help us grow. Then there is solitude. For most of human history, people regularly spent time alone with their thoughts. Walking, working, traveling, staring at the stars, sitting quietly beside a fire. The mind had room to wander. Today, that space is increasingly rare. The moment silence arrives, we fill it. The moment a thought becomes uncomfortable, we distract ourselves. The moment reflection begins, content interrupts it. We are becoming less practiced at being alone with our own minds. None of these changes happen overnight. No child suddenly loses imagination. No adult suddenly loses focus. No society suddenly changes. The transformation happens gradually, 1 minute at a time, one swipe at a time, 1 year at a time. That's what makes it difficult to notice. When something disappears slowly, it rarely feels like a loss. People adapt, the new normal becomes normal, and eventually, nobody remembers what existed before. The first generation raised by algorithms may not realize what previous generations experienced, not because they are less intelligent, not because they are weaker, simply because they grew up in a different environment. And environments shape behavior, far more than most people realize. A fish doesn't notice water. People rarely notice the environment shaping them either, especially when everyone around them is experiencing the same thing. The question isn't whether technology is good or bad. That's the wrong question. The real question is this: what kind of human beings emerge from an environment where attention is constantly being competed for? And for the first time in history, we're about to find out. Every generation grows up in a different world. One generation grew up with radio, another with television, another with the internet. But the generation growing up today may be the first generation whose daily experiences are shaped by algorithms from the moment they can hold a screen. Think about how unusual that is. For thousands of years, children learned from parents, family, teachers, friends, communities. Today, there is a new influence sitting quietly beside all of them: the algorithm. Unlike a teacher, the algorithm never sleeps. Unlike a parent, it never gets tired. Unlike a friend, it can deliver something interesting every second of the day. And unlike any human being, it can learn from billions of interactions simultaneously. Imagine a child opening a social media app. Within seconds, the system begins observing. What did they stop on? What made them laugh? What made them curious? What made them angry? What made them stay? Every action becomes data. Most children don't realize this is happening. Most adults don't realize it either. The experience feels natural. It feels like entertainment. But underneath the surface, an invisible system is constantly adapting itself to become more effective. And effectiveness matters because the algorithm is not competing against other apps. It's competing against reality itself, against books, against conversations, against hobbies, against sports, against sleep, against every alternative use of attention. That sounds dramatic, but consider the average teenager. Many spend several hours per day on algorithm-driven platforms. Over a year, that becomes thousands of hours. Over childhood, it becomes a significant portion of their conscious life. Now imagine spending thousands of hours with any teacher, any coach, any mentor, any philosophy. You would expect it to influence who you become. Why would algorithms be any different? The difference is that nobody intentionally chose this teacher. Nobody interviewed it. Nobody approved its curriculum. Nobody voted for it. And yet it influences millions of children every day. The strange thing is that the algorithm doesn't necessarily care what children learn. It only cares whether they stay, whether they return tomorrow, whether they keep watching. The objective is engagement. Everything else is secondary. This creates an unusual situation. Some of the most powerful forces shaping childhood were never designed to raise children. They were designed to maximize attention. And those are very different goals. Parents want healthy children. Teachers want educated children. Communities want responsible children. Algorithms want engaged children. Those incentives do not always point in the same direction. The result is a generation growing up inside an environment unlike anything humanity has experienced before. Not because children changed. Children are still children. Human nature is still human nature. The environment changed. And environments matter enormously. A child raised near books behaves differently than a child raised without books. A child raised around musicians behaves differently than a child raised around athletes. Environment quietly shapes identity. Now imagine an environment optimized by machines. Machines that constantly adapt. Machines that learn faster every year. Machines that compete for attention every second. That's the environment millions of children are growing up inside right now. Some people believe the outcome will be positive. Children will become more connected, more informed, more technologically capable, more globally aware, and they may be right. Others worry about attention spans, mental health, anxiety, isolation, addiction. And they may also be right. The uncomfortable truth is that nobody really knows, because there has never been a generation raised under these conditions before. We have theories, we have studies, we have opinions, but we don't yet have history. History is being written right now. The first generation raised by algorithms is still growing up. We are watching the experiment unfold in real time, and we won't fully understand the results until years from now. Which means the most important question may not be, should children use technology? Because that battle is already over. Technology is here to stay. The real question is, how do we teach children to use technology without surrendering control of their attention? Because attention may become the most valuable resource of the 21st century. And whoever controls attention increasingly controls everything built from it. If all of this sounds alarming, there is something important to remember. Human beings are incredibly adaptable. We survived ice ages, wars, pandemics, industrial revolutions, the internet, and we will adapt to this too. The goal is not to reject technology. That would be impossible. Technology is one of humanity's greatest achievements. The same tools that distract us can also educate us, connect us, inspire us, and help us build extraordinary things. The internet gave millions of people access to opportunities that never existed before. A teenager can learn programming, start a business, build an audience, learn a language, create art, or collaborate with people across the world, all from a laptop. The problem isn't the existence of technology. The problem is unconscious use of technology. There is a difference, a massive difference. Because tools are powerful when you control them. Tools become dangerous when they control you. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The value isn't in the tool itself, it's in how it's used. The same principle applies to algorithms. The question isn't whether algorithms are good or bad. The question is whether you're using the algorithm or the algorithm is using you. And that question is becoming increasingly important because the future isn't becoming less distracting, it's becoming more distracting. Artificial intelligence will create more content, not less. More videos, more images, more music, more articles, more notifications, more stimulation. The amount of information competing for your attention is about to increase dramatically, and attention will become even more valuable than it is today. Think about the modern economy. Almost every major company is competing for attention. Streaming platforms, news companies, social media platforms, advertisers, gaming companies, everyone wants the same thing, a piece of your focus, which means attention is becoming a scarce resource. Ironically, information became infinite, and attention became scarce. For most of human history, knowledge was difficult to find. Now knowledge is everywhere. The challenge is focusing long enough to use it. That may be why attention becomes the defining skill of the future, not intelligence, not talent, not even access to information. Attention. Because attention determines what you learn, what you remember, what you practice, what you believe, what you become. Every skill begins with attention. Every relationship begins with attention. Every achievement begins with attention. Nothing meaningful happens without it. The people who can direct their attention intentionally may gain an enormous advantage. Not because they're smarter, because they can focus while everyone else is distracted. Imagine two people with the same intelligence, the same opportunities, the same resources, the same technology. One spends years reacting to whatever captures attention. The other decides where attention goes. Which one do you think builds more, creates more, learns more, becomes more? The future may belong to people who can do something surprisingly rare. Sit down, focus, ignore distractions, and stay with one idea long enough to make something valuable. That sounds simple, but it may become one of the hardest skills in modern life. Because every year, more systems are competing to interrupt you. More notifications, more recommendations, more personalized content, more reasons to stop paying attention to what truly matters. The first generation raised by algorithms may also become the first generation forced to consciously defend their attention. And perhaps that's the lesson hidden inside this entire story. The future isn't about escaping technology. The future is about mastering your relationship with it. Technology will continue to evolve. Algorithms will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence will continue to evolve. That part is inevitable. The question is whether human beings evolve too. Not biologically, behaviorally. Can we learn to use these tools without becoming dependent on them? Can we benefit from them without surrendering our focus? Can we stay curious without becoming distracted? Because curiosity built civilization. Attention built mastery. And both are still available, if we choose them. The first generation raised by algorithms is already here. The experiment is already underway. The outcome is still unwritten. But one thing seems increasingly clear. The people who thrive in the future won't necessarily be the people with the best technology. They'll be the people who can decide what deserves their attention and protect it. Because your attention becomes your habits become your actions become your future. And in an age where everyone is fighting for your attention, choosing where it goes may become the most important decision you make. The first generation raised by algorithms is writing a completely new chapter of human history. And whether that story becomes extraordinary or tragic may depend on a skill we once took for granted. The ability to pay attention.